Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you are going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. Then we had to give you this narration. The translation of the message that I received reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? I am a man who is aged 40 years old. I come from an area in which, in our country, it is very much talked about in terms of it having very powerful traditional healers. So a lot of people that are from our country, immediately they will be able to recognize this area when I have said that in our country, from where I come from, there are a lot of very powerful traditional healers. I think that the reason as to why in our area there are a lot of powerful traditional healers, it is because they would go and they would get their healing powers from Zambian culture, mixing it with Malawian culture, as well as the Mozambican culture. I witnessed this because from my own mother's side, there is a lot of healers, a lot of cultures that are mixed from my mother's side. So I saw that this is what they used to do, and they made these traditional healers to be very powerful, to be capable of fighting any kind of spiritual battle. In our family, we were taught from a very young age what it meant to be born into a family whereby even our own forefathers were doing some of these money-making rituals. But in the past, they were not chasing after money. They used to chase after a livestock. Like in the case of our great-grandfather, he used to work. We were told that he used to work in the mines there when it was called a gully. When he was there, he got some money, and when he returned back, he bought his livestock. But some of the Rhodesian farmers, they were taking the livestock from the black people, because the black people were not allowed to own a lot of livestock. So a lot of people from his village, they then started using a lot of herbs so as to confuse those white Rhodesians that used to come and to take their livestock. And my own great-grandfather, we were told that he also came from a family which had a lot of powerful traditional healers. My great-grandfather had a very big homestead, and he had so many wives that right now his offspring, we are all over the place, and some of us, we do not even know each other. He had a very big plot, and he had a lot of paddocks where he kept his cattle. We were told that his livestock was so much that he could not even keep them in a single kraal, so he ended up building these paddocks. That is why most of the white Rhodesians would come trying to take his livestock, because it was quite a lot. So after he had gotten some of these charms from Mozambique, he was given the charms whereby he would make his cattle to look like they were monkeys, and he also had some charms whereby he would actually turn monkeys, so that the monkeys, when they were possessed by the tokologies that he had, the monkeys would look like they were real cattle. My great-grandfather would sell this cattle to his unsuspecting victims, and after the purchase, when you have purchased this livestock, by the time that you return back to your farm or your village, you would find out that the cow that you would have bought, it will get so sick, then it will die. Even we were told that even in the times of war, my great-grandfather, he used to hide his cattle in this fashion from the guerrilla fighters, as well from the Rhodesian army. So growing up, my grandfather used to take us into the mountains where we would hunt down the baboons, but he used to do it using his magic. He would be speaking with these baboons that we would have found there sitting on the rocks in the mountains. He would speak with them, communicating with them using Chinyanja, and asking them to follow us back into the village. And whenever this would happen, amongst those baboons that would be sitting on top of the rocks in a troop, after he had spoken with them in Chinyanja language, not all of the baboons would leave their own troop, but only sometimes 2 that would follow us, or 3 or more. Then he would turn them into cattle. What he will do is that at night, once those baboons would have entered into the cattle kraal, then my grandfather would cook the soft porridge with meat that didn't have salt, and he would enter into that cattle kraal, and once those baboons would try to eat the soft porridge, then they will start screaming like they were screaming in pain, and you would see that their eyes, they will be turning and they would go blind. When the morning comes, my grandfather used to take me to the cattle kraal, and you would find that there will be cattle instead of baboons. Let's say that if 5 baboons had followed you down the mountain and had entered into the kraal the previous night, then the next morning when you wake up, you would find 5 cattle in their stead. So my grandfather left a lot of cattle, and at the time of his death, my father and his siblings, they started fighting over his wealth, and all of the cattle, after they had started fighting, they all disappeared, and my relatives then started bewitching each other like no man's business. My father then consulted with healers from my mother's side, since there are a lot of traditional healers. Even my own mother, she used to be a herbalist, and when he visited And when my father consulted with the healers from my mother's side, he was then given a snake. But this snake that was given to him, it was there to protect the few livestock that had been given to him by my grandfather, his father. When he was given this snake of protection, it was not a real snake. It was just a small matchstick, and it gave my father great wealth. And this made my father's relatives to be very jealous of him, because he then went to Harare, the capital city, where he bought a house. And after he had bought that house, he was staying in the village as well as the city. But we were always staying in the village. We only got the chance to be in the city when my father was really old, just before he had passed away. So my father then followed the advice of my mother's relatives, who had given him this tokoloshi. All that was needed was for him to slaughter 2 cows a year. One was supposed to be slaughtered in April, and one was supposed to be slaughtered like when the healers from our country will be resting, when they are not allowed to communicate with their ancestors. Usually this is in November, when no one is allowed to communicate with our ancestors. So this went on for years and years, until I was 15, when 2 of my brothers died in 2 separate accidents. This was in April, and it looked like it was just a coincidence. But in November in that same year, when 2 of my brothers passed away in April, my sister then fell into a river whilst she was fetching water, and the women that she was with, they all failed to pull her out of the river. They said that it seemed as if there was a hand that was grabbing her. So people just thought that maybe it was a water spirit / a mermaid that was dragging her down the river. Her body was never found. My father was told that his brother's tokoloshis was doing this to our father, Brother Nashi. When one bewitches you, it doesn't require a lot of energy. Someone can just give you a funny item that won't make you to be suspicious, like what happened to my father. One day, my father, when he had returned from the city, his elder brother called him, and they wanted to go on a hunt together. When they were in the forest, they then came across this wild boar, the wild pig that they met. My father's brother then hit that wild pig with a spear. But when it came time for him to finish off that wild pig that he had successfully struck down with his spear, my father's elder brother then gave him a funny looking hunting knife to finish off that wild pig that was lying on the ground. But my father later said that he saw that there was something strange about that hunting knife that his brother had gave him, because it felt really heavy. He said that it felt heavy like it was a big hammer. But anyway, he went on and he stabbed that wild pig in the neck. And the strange thing about this is that all of those accidents that occurred, then one of my brother had a metallic bar that was stuck on his neck. This metallic bar, at the time of the collision, when the car that he was traveling in collided with another car, there was a metallic bar that was stripped off from the car, and it then got stuck on his neck, just like my father had slaughtered that wild pig with that knife that he had been given to him. My father and my mother, out of pain, what they did is that they then traveled to Malawi to seek revenge, and when they came back, they then slaughtered a cow. This we did in the middle of the night, and when we woke up the following day, my brother, we didn't find anything. Like at the tree where we had tied that cow that we ended up slaughtering, when we woke up, there was not even any evidence at all. There was no blood, there were no bones, there was no animal skin that was left behind. The thing that ate that cow, it seemed as if it just vacuumed everything. So the blood, some of the blood, my mom took that blood and helped my father to pour that blood on that matchstick. It was not a lot of blood, it was just a few droplets of blood. This ritual, we performed it. This was in 2005 when it happened. Then the following year, this was again on the April 2nd of April. I still remember that my auntie, she then passed away on 2 April, and she died again in an accident. And then in that same year, my father's sister, she died again. This was in November. If I tell you that since the time that my brothers and my sister passed away, and when my auntie passed away, it is more like a register. When one dies in April, then we will know that in that same year, someone else is going to die in November. If death decides to visit our large family, it takes 2 people instead of death taking 1 person. As for that snake right now, I know that if it is still alive, it is big as a snake, because I've never communicated with my mother for a very long time. I last communicated with her when this snake wanted to take one of my daughters, and we prayed so much. That was when I gave my life to Christ, and ever since that time, I tried to tell my mom to come to church so that she can confess about this snake, which was said to be as big as a car, that is there at the place where my father bought his house. And we were told by the pastor that this snake, it even has its own room, and in that room, that is where the altar is. Each and every time when someone dies of an accident in our family, then that altar will be full of blood. So this snake will survive on that blood until when the blood runs out, then another sacrifice will be done again in the family. So I spoke with my mom out of love, and she insulted me, and she said that she was going to have me and the pastor arrested, because in our country, it is forbidden. It is a crime for you to say that someone is a witch, because it cannot be proven in the court of law that someone has bewitched you. So this is the situation that we are facing as a family. So I suspect that my mother gave it to my sister, because the pastor who prayed for me, he never knew me. It was like the first time that he was giving me that prophecy, but he told me my surname, and he even mentioned the name of my sister. So this sister of mine, she used to be a school principal. She used to be a school headmaster at the secondary school that she was teaching at. And this sister of mine, she is truly evil, because she was already initiated into witchcraft at a very young age. She also ate her own husband. Right now, my brother, all of her kids, they are university graduates, but she stole all of their thinking capacities. If you were to see them, you will feel sorry for them, because unlike other kids that they went to university with, most of them, they managed to have homes of their own, but they are still staying with their mother. As for their father, he just passed away, and when he passed away, there was just saliva that was drooling from his mouth, like someone who had lost his mind. So I know that my sister, she is the one who was also given this snake by my mother. As for me, I find safety in my mother-in-law. I rely heavily on her prayers. If that was not the case, my daughter would have passed away a long time ago. Even I could have been a sacrifice for that snake. I could have died a very long time ago. There was a period in my life where I could just be told that I was speaking with myself. It was like I would be hallucinating, but I have no memories of what I used to see at the time when people will say that you were just talking to yourself. And when I would wake up from that vision, I would have no memory of what would have happened in that vision. Dear listeners, right there was a message that comes from a translation of a message that I received as a WhatsApp voice note. Then we had to give you this translation.